Topic for the next session is climate resiliency development, sharing best practices between India and Africa. And the panel members for the session will be Kenneth M. Quinn, Ambassador World Food Prize. He will be joining online. We'll have Mr. Obai Khalifa, Deputy Director, ECS Africa. Mr. Obai. Okay. Mr. Carter Davis Heck, CEO of Resilient Agriculture Systems. Mr. Carter. Thank you, sir. Mr. Raja Wadlamani, President, Seedworks International Limited. Dr. G. Radhakrishnan, President, Corp Science, Sadhguru Management Consultants. Thank you, sir. Mr. Mausa Konate, Senior Advisor, EPC, SAC, Burkina Faso. The moderator for the session will be Mr. Binu Cherin, Country Manager, Harvest Plus. Fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have all our panel members on the stage and we have our moderator as well. So, can we give them a huge round of applause before they start the session? So, once again, the topic is climate resiliency development, sharing best practices between India and Africa. Let's open the room for discussion. Over to the moderator. Thank you.
So very good morning, and it's a privilege to have you all here, and it's a privilege to be a part of this important session on climate resilient seed system and sharing the experiences between India and Africa. You know, seed system and climate change is very important as part of agriculture and strengthening the food systems. And today we have an exceptionally brilliant panel coming from commercial, non-profit, philanthropic, and private sector. Some are entrepreneurs who have worked across the value chain, all the way from seed and how do we deliver the seed to the consumers. So my name is Binu Cherian. I'm a country manager for Harvest Plus, and we are a part of the CGIAR, and we have been working in the field of biofortification for the last 20 years. I'm extremely happy to have Gates Foundation here, who have been supporting Harvest Plus from the start, from the idea all the way to conception, and today more than 440 varieties of biofortified crops have been delivered to close to about 40 countries. And in India, we have been working with close to about 160 partners, including ICAR, state agriculture universities, private sector, public sector. We work with close to about 3 million smallholder farmers, benefiting close to about 15 million people in India. So what I would like to, since we have only 1 hour time, and we have an exceptionally brilliant panel who have deep insights from India and Africa. So I'll start with Mr. Obai Khalifa, who is the Deputy Director from Gates Foundation. And before you start, I do not have the bios of all of you. I'm so sorry. So I will request you to briefly introduce yourself, and then we can start the thoughts and the discussion on this panel. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Really privileged to be here with you this week in Hyderabad. the city of Seet in India. And my name is Ubay Khalifa. I am Deputy Director for Agriculture Development for Africa with Gates Foundation, based out of Nairobi. And my work is primarily around making the link between all the innovations, the investments we are making in the upstream work, and the country priorities in Africa to make sure that we are building clear roadmaps for agricultural transformation in Africa and providing the runway, if you will, for all the innovations to scale in response to the very dire needs of small-scale farmers in Africa. And obviously working closely with our colleagues who are based here out of Delhi, who are driving the work in South Asia. Thank you.
So over to you. Let me have your thoughts on why it is important from a seed perspective, the climate resilient part, especially in India and Africa for the coming decade.
Yeah, now you make me feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but I'll try. I think maybe just starting by saying for Gates Foundation, agricultural development has always been one of the key pillars of our work. So most of our investments and funding has already gone to agricultural development. And recently our chair has made the announcement that he will actually have a timeline for the foundation. So he committed to close down the foundation in 20 years. And he also committed that he will be spending around $200 billion within those 20 years. And big chunk of that is actually going towards agricultural development. So he's prioritizing three areas or three aspirations. One is around reducing the child and maternal mortality. Two is around disease eradication. And three is around economic opportunity, how to mobilize hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. But you know, if you think about that, you have to think that most of the people who are impacted or who are living in extreme poverty are actually in rural communities in Africa, in South Asia, small-scale farmers who are disproportionately, obviously, impacted by climate change, least contribution, but the biggest impact is on them. So there is no way that you can think about moving people out of poverty without thinking about agriculture. But you do all of that in the backdrop of climate change. So comparing things to a couple of years or decades ago, it's a reality. We are living climate change. It's not something we have to prepare for it. It's already here. So moving back to the problem. So what's the problem we are dealing with? I think it's been already discussed in length in the last 2 days. We are talking about the repeated droughts, increased frequency of climate shocks. We are talking about pests like fall armyworm, which is costing in Africa more than $6 billion annually for maize. We are talking about pests like CBSD for cassava, for example, which can wipe away the whole harvest. We are talking about the pod borer, for example, in cowpea, which is the main source of protein for many people in rural populations in Africa. So you need to think about all of this, but you have to think that it's not just a food security issue. It is something that needs to be addressed at macroeconomic level, because cassava is not just a staple crop. It's something that, I know Mr. DG is here, Mr. Fatuhu, but for Nigeria, the biggest producer in the world globally, this is a huge economic opportunity from being able to address all of those industrial derivatives being imported, costing the national treasury, more than $600 million can actually be replaced by cassava. And countries like Vietnam and Thailand, they're exporting $1.5–2 billion annually. There is also the issue of maize in animal feed. Countries like Nigeria, we know that the consumption of animal protein, poultry, for example, is less than 3 kilograms per annum per capita, compared to the global average of 25 kilograms. And how can you address those kind of issues without being able to think about reducing the cost of maize? For example, cowpea is another thing. So the reality is, it is something that we do have a solution for it. we do have innovation that all the CG centers, all different partners, private sector have been developing solutions. We have tested those solutions in the field. We know that in Nigeria, again, Babangona, for example, one of the big aggregators, when they have tested telemaize, they have seen that the yield is in the same plot, different fields, 43% more yield for telemaize compared to the existing varieties under the same conditions. Same thing in terms of farmer P&L, increased revenue of more than 4 times, from $250 to more than $1,000. So I think the case is clear in terms of why we should be engaging in this area, but the caveat is it doesn't come on its own. So there is no silver bullet. We have to think about all the shocks that can happen from fertilizer prices. We have to think about the working capital also for farmers. Different constraints we need to address, how to use AI and extension services and all of this to make sure that we don't actually erode the confidence in the innovations that is happening on the seed side. So all in all, the case is clear. It's just about how can we actually make sure that we focus on scaling it.
So thank you so much. Dear Mr. Kater Heike, so one of the bigger challenges for the plant breeders has been to integrate farmers' feedback into when they develop varieties. And according to you, what are the bigger challenges for a plant breeder to integrate both the climate smart and these varieties are locally adaptable? Can I have your introduction,
Yes.
please? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for asking me to join you. What a tremendous audience to be here and not be in the hallways checking your WhatsApp. So I applaud you all for your diligence and your interest. It's an honor to be a part of this distinguished panel. I've worked as a cotton agronomist and cotton breeding. I've worked in all aspects of breeding and seed production and agronomy for about 45 years in cotton research. And I'm currently working to bring mechanization or to expand mechanization in cotton here. So let me jump into a wonderful question, because climate resilience is obviously on everyone's mind, and we don't worry about the 0.2 degrees centigrade that we're going up a decade. The breeders can deal with that. That's a very slow, gradual. What we worry about is the thresholds that we get for either insects or weather or diseases. When we reach a slightly increase in temperature, then we have the expansion of the diseases and the insects we've heard. And these are devastating because they move into new areas that are naive, that are not susceptible, they're not resistant, they don't have tolerance to those pests. So when we look at the traditional breeding program, how that can incorporate and address these, initially breeders look at the combination of alleles or haplotypes under very favorable conditions to try to identify combinations that biochemically, the machinery just works, where the machinery of the cell and the physiology functions well. And then they take those to expanded locations and they test them again. But ideally, then we take those germplasm and they go to farmers. And they ideally go to farmers that have a strong interest in germplasm and varieties, farmers that might take only 5% of their land, not 60% or 50%, but only 5% of their land, and evaluate these novel genotypes under their condition. And so these are the farmers that are most able to identify the cutting-edge invasions of pests and diseases and evaluate maybe 3 to 5 new genotypes in relationship to their standard. And it also expands dramatically the environmental exposure that the genotypes are exposed to. So going to that next step of having the farmer engagement in evaluating cutting-edge varieties and feeding that back in upstream, that I think is a real critical way to address the resilience that we need for both climate and diseases. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. At Harvest Plus, we have been using a technology called XRF, basically to analyze the micronutrient content. And it's been a game changer for the plant breeders, because when the program started, it was all about petri dish. Yeah. And then over the years, XRF technology was introduced, and it is a hybrid tool where the plant breeders can accept or reject. So that was a game changer. And traditionally, machines are used in the mining industry. And we had a collaboration with the Flinders University, and we've been able to calibrate for plant breeding. And in India, close to about all the plant breeding, nutritional breeding, we use XRF today. So that's very critical how technology can help in, plant breeding and accelerate the plant breeding. Especially the plant breeders have been very helpful when XRFs have been used in the last. Probably we have been using it for the last 10 years or so. Yeah.
Excellent.
So next panel, Dr. G. Radhakrishnan. Can I have your introduction, please, and then we can have your thoughts.
Thank you, Vinu. So first of all, I would like to immensely thank Indian Chamber of Food and Agriculture for inviting me to be a panelist in this eminent panelist. My name is Dr. G. Radhakrishnan. I lead the crop science advisory practice of Sadhguru Management Consultants. So basically in Sadhguru, we help the seed companies to transform and expand their businesses. We also closely engage with the governments like Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture, and various international government bodies in developing the policy advocacies in agriculture space. So we are also running the India-Netherlands Seed Secretariat. That's a bilateral between India and Government of Netherlands in India. So I have a background in breeding and trait research and genetics by working in Nunhems, which was a part of Bayer Crop Science and BASF for 21 years, leading the global phytopathology, trait research and breeding programs. So that's my introduction.
So Dr. Radhakrishnan, where do you see biotechnology in the coming decades? And I think so they is playing an important role, basically to advance the plant breeding as a technique for climate resilience.
Okay, thank you for very interesting. Because I'm a big fan of biotechnology and advanced breeding and enabling technologies, because these are the game changers in today's agriculture. So we have seen the Mendelian genetics in the last around 8 decades, right? So in the last 3 decades, these advanced technologies, biotechnological innovations like development of the GMOs or marker-state breedings, double haploid technology, gene editing, genomic selections, and the new ones like speed breeding. So all these enabling technologies have enabled the breeders and scientists to bring more value-added traits faster to the market, which are more adaptable to the various climates. Yeah? So these are the innovations which have to be determined by the companies, what kind of traits and segments the companies are targeting. So various parameters are being decided by the company. What is the regulatory framework in a country? So what are the policy guidelines? So what kind of traits are there, and how big is the market potential? All these are critically evaluated before deciding in the breeding program what kind of a technology and what trait to address and what kind of a breeding segments to target. And who are the customers who will be imbibing those value-added traits and technologies. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Next, our panelist, Mr. Raja Valdamani. Sir, can I have your brief introduction, and then we can take up the...
Sure, thank you. Hello, am I audible? Yeah. Well, the Seed That Works, actually, that is SeedWorks. So I represent a company called SeedWorks International, and we have a legacy of 25 years. While we predominantly are much known in India, also our footprints expand up to Philippines, where we are known for a biggest rice company there. And also of late, we also entered into Africa. So this is brief about, and we deal in the 4 crops, that is rice, cotton, millet, and mustard, and also the vegetables. That is actually our business scope. And myself, Raja, and then I'm representing SeedWorks as the president. And I have been associated with Seedworks for the last 17 years, and of course in the industry for the last 40 years. So this is all about me.
So climate extremes are becoming unpredictable. Now, how can plant breeders or seed developers a balance between resilience, at the same time when you take this crop, it needs to perform, it should be high yielding. At the same time, you have to create market demand. So from a seed perspective, how do you put up this model?
Sure. So for this, I take some of the very practical case examples, which I myself learned from the Seedworks or the erstwhile experiences, right? Okay. Fundamentally, my experience goes when we try to read or the map the mind of the farmer, what typically is looking for. The farmer is looking for improved genetics year by year, and also you want more yield year by year. But having said that, farmer is not just happy with what we give as a climate hardy seeds, right? Okay. Ultimately, yield is also important, and also the value of the price that he gets in the commercial arena. And also, of late, the nutritional density is also very important to get into. Having said, while it is not a new concept that, breeding for the resistance, like, okay, resistance for biotic and also resistance for abiotic. See, most importantly, while I just shift to my practical cases, actually, see the way when we started our breeding as our objectives when we set for ourselves way back in 2007, we're not actually looking at just for breeding for resistance, right? Okay, it's also breeding for the adaptability, right? Okay, the traits, which is very important given the climate change which we are experiencing, right? Okay. Now the challenge comes out here. What is that challenge actually? Suppose if you breed for a drought resistance or a very submergence or something for each trait actually, and if you build upon more traits, what's happening is it's taking a task on the other factors, yield actually. So when I try for yield, then the other factors will impact, and if it is, then how to bring all these traits and enrich and embed in a single hybrid is the real challenge for all the researchers actually, right? Okay. Now coming to one of the two examples what I experienced in my journey. So when I joined here, so very fast actually the concept itself was more of adaptability, right? Okay, the wider adaptability, right? Okay, it is not categorical, right? Okay, geographic, specific and all. So the success also we got in with one of our product in rice, right? Okay, and it is actually of a medium to or late early maturity, at drought tolerant, at yield is good, then market preferences are good, and the beauty of it is that that product is a charming product not only in India. Even if Philippines, same product will work in the Philippines, it works in Indonesia, and also it works in the Vietnam, and also in some of the trials in Africa also it worked actually. This is what is the beauty of that product, right? Okay, there is wider adaptability, which is also very important how we breed actually, right? Okay, this is one of the case actually which I experienced, right? Okay, in case of rice. So having said, we have many other products, right? Okay, which are actually very good in terms of the yield and all. But again, if I look back, the charm continues years, right? Okay. Often we see in the seed industry, the products are short-lived, right? Okay. The replacement happens 5 years in spite of its development cycle for 7 years. But there are certain products which are embedded with so much of traits actually, they maintain the charm for years, right? Okay. Then, and also another example what I could say from my cotton story, right? Okay, and so in the northern India, the CLCV is one of the important actually trait. That's what we have to build in the resistance actually. So often we had the challenge that if I built a CLCV, then it's taking task on the yield again. If I build for this thing, it's not CLCV. So farmer is always looking for everything embedded, right? Okay, not only one thing, but ultimately yield is important. And unless there is no yield, giving just climate hardy, it may serve for a shorter time, but in a longer time, actually, you should have all the embedded in it, actually. So this is my simple thing. So having then another challenge has come up. when a product or a hybrid has so many traits embedded, all beautiful traits, then there is a challenge exists in producing it at scale. Right. The producing at scale, the supply chain is also very important in the seed industry. While we breed for the customer-centric and the best products, often we have to take some pain in the supply chains, right? Okay. Because while the F1 is having all the beauties, so some of the parents may become sensitive to some of the traits. So then supply chain is always a challenge in one of the best, some of the best products, right? Okay. So supply chain disruptions is what about always we talk about in my industry and in my ecosystem where I work. So then how we improve upon how you make it adaptable, adjustable in the production arena and make it scale. So that's very important to bring in the success. So supply chain, the research go hand in hand to build the right products and also which are viable in a business, give a business sense and to give a best seeds to the farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Next panelist is Mr. Musa Konate. So the question to you is that how can governments and the private sector can work together, both together to implement as also to fund these climate resilient seed innovation? Before you start, sir, can I have your introduction? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you, sir. My name is Musa Konate. I am from Burkina Faso. I am advisor a company, private company, EPCZAC. And before that, I work for IFAD and for FAO in Burkina Faso and UNDP also. Now I work with EPCZAC. It is a private company for production and distribution seed in Burkina Faso. But we are very happy to be in this summit. It gives us opportunity to meet Indians company because we know very well that you are in advance in technology in many other sector. That means it is a great opportunity for us. I think that in seed sector, the contribution, collaboration between government, between private sector is very important. We know that now what we are waiting for our government that to give opportunity to create conditions, for example, is policies, to give opportunities, investors to come to Burkina and to other countries, Africa, for example, to make investment, a secure condition, and give opportunity also the private sector to give great training and also that permit him to deliver a high quality for seed production. I think that it is a reason for us to hope that we can improve seed production by training, by partnership, government sector, private sector, and other partner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to Mr. Khalifa. Now, what lessons can we draw, since you, Gates Foundation, work with the large stakeholder in India and Africa? You work with private, you work with public. So what lessons can we draw? Could be successful, could be some of the challenges, both from Africa or India programs, in the field of drought resistance or heat tolerant or climate smart agriculture program. What are the big challenges, or what could be the success in the last 10 or 15 or 20 years that you have been working in India, Africa?
Yeah. I don't know how many hours do we have.
We have another 30 minutes or so, but
So I'll try to be quick, but I'll try to focus on Africa. and we had many failures. And I think it's a blessing. It's definitely something we're trying to learn from. So maybe just focusing on a few. Number one, I think it's not just about climate smart. It's about consumer smart. It's about farmer smart. So one thing is to design something upstream, and another thing is to be able to incorporate all the market reality. I wish if some of the scientists, to whom I have so much respect, I'm sure some of my colleagues here know Dr. Nigosa. So I think in the cassava breeding, we have learned so many lessons in terms of how to design based on the consumer preference, about the cooking time, about the starch content. Is it for industrial use? Is it for household use? So Dr. Shidozi would be able to tell so many insights on this one. I'm sure many of you know him. The other one is about being able to think around the supply constraints and the seed production. I'm sure you have exhausted this topic in the last 2 days, but again, for us now, it's more about the solutions that we see. And we are very excited being here, connecting with seed companies. I see Mr. Prasad here in front of me, and I'm sure with many other companies, there are opportunities for us to introduce the model whereby you don't have to worry as a seed company in Africa taking care of everything. There is an opportunity to tap into expertise, quality from tolling seed producers until you are able to ramp up your local production capacity. But there are opportunities for us to introduce a tolling model in Africa, similar to how it has been done here in India. And then we allow the partnerships whereby some players can focus on the distribution, understanding the channels locally and all of that, but working with some of the tolling companies, something we are trying to encourage and something we are trying also to get the regulatory support for it. The other point is around also thinking, if you come as an Indian company, you want to do business in Africa, we had lots of lessons and successes actually in other adjacent sectors to seed production. That companies is not just about trade, it's not just about bringing your produce and selling in Africa, it's about implanting yourself, making sure that you become part of this sector locally. Companies like even here from Ahmedabad, Hester Biosciences, setting up a vaccine manufacturing facility for animals and for livestock and poultry in Tanzania. And it's something that we have been very, very proud to be part of it and engaging with them. Last but not least is obviously thinking about taking the systems approach also, that it's going to be a huge failure if you come and if you are not able to work pre-competitively as private sector. Because if you are able to discuss at the same time seed companies, AI advisory systems, fertilizers companies, soil health, all of this coming together and having a policy dialogue at top level in each country where you are going in Africa is going to help us build the infrastructure that is needed for all of this work to bring the result that we are aspiring to. So let me stop there and allow my colleagues to add as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, when we started this whole biofortification program, the founders of the program believed very strongly that it's not only seed development, but it's all about how do we develop value chains. Because unless until you don't develop value chains, it's very difficult to create demand for these nutritious crops. Because some of these crops are invisible. Because iron and zinc are invisible trade. Vitamin is visible trade, like cassava and sweet potatoes is visible. But there are different challenges to take it to market. Like in Zambia, we struggled for the first 2 years because it's a white maize-eating country. And we are introducing an orange maize, So the challenge was that it should be a consumer-friendly technology, Yeah. So, sir, the question to you would be that what role does community, seed bank, and local seed systems play to strengthen the resilience, climate resilient seed systems? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I'd like to very shortly answer that and then put it in a little broader context with what we just heard from the Gates Foundation. So the world has wonderful seed genetic resources for the major crops, maize, wheat, rice, even cotton, tremendous resources. But it's the minor crops that we need those genetic resources. And obviously the farmers are the keepers of that genetic resource. Those are the ones that have that germplasm. But collecting it is just the very first initial step in germplasm repositories, maintaining the viability, increasing it, getting that seed available to the breeders. That requires professional seed organizations to do that. It's not trivial. Each crop has its own restrictions. Sometimes each germplasm has its own restrictions to multiply it and maintain its genetic purity. But then there's also another issue where the farmers come in and are extremely helpful, and that is in the characterization of germplasm. Just having a plant introduction number on a resource doesn't mean a whole lot. It's the information behind it, of where it came from, whether it was growing in saline soils, what kind of diseases, the characterization that's added and expanded to that germplasm. And I want to just briefly tie in with what we just heard about cassava, because I've worked in cotton all my life, and we think cotton, cotton, cotton. But now, because of the sciences that are coming along, what the Gates Foundation does in cassava directly helps cotton. We had a huge problem with bacterial blight, where Dr. Bart, who you fund, was able to make advancements in cassava, and that research was directly translated to cotton. So from a genetic resources, even these minor crops, we may not think of them as important for the major crop, but we're now learning the bridges, the genetic connections between these crops. And so knowledge gained in a millet or a cassava, that knowledge is going to expand our ability to improve the major crops as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the question to you, Mr. Dr. Radhakrishnan, would be, what are the challenges that you see? Innovations to be made cost-effective, at the same time accessible to the communities.
Okay. So I see three major challenges actually. The first one is the clarity in regulatory framework and policies. That's the first one I would rate. And then the second one is affordability of these kind of value-added seeds to the farmers. And then the third one is the awareness and trust in those technologies by the farmers. Let me start with the first one actually. Why I say the regulatory framework clarity is a big concern. In Africa, like in African Union, 55 countries are there. COMESA, we have about 15 countries, and ECOWAS 15 countries, COMESA 21 countries, right? And each of these union countries have a different regulations, especially in terms of genome editing. I can give examples, like in Kenya, for example. So Kenya, Uganda, then Ethiopia, South Africa. They are advanced in genome editing. So they are in the various levels of developing the lines and hybrids in key crops, like in Kenya. So they are developing striga resistance in sorghum. Yeah? And they are developing maize lethal necrosis resistance and drought resistance in maize. Similarly, in Uganda, so they are developing rice yellow mottle virus resistance. In South Africa, the teams are developing virus resistance in cassava and potatoes. And in Ethiopia, the advanced breedings are going on by using genome editing for developing drought tolerance in wheat, and also high quality fiber and biofuels in sorghum. So these are the research which is going on. It's not a theoretical, it's a reality. Yeah? So soon these crops will be commercialized, right? But then if you see the regulatory part actually, like the genome editing has three approaches, like SDN1, SDN2, and SDN3, right? In Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana and Malawi. So where SDN1 and SDN2 are exempt, only SDN3 is regulated as GMO crop. Whereas in South Africa, Uganda, Tanzania, all the gene editing approaches are regulated like GMO. Like Burkina Faso, Ethiopia, the draft guidelines are underway. Soon it will be coming. And there are many African countries where the regulatory system is not clear and guidelines are not in place actually. Whereas in other side, we see that technological advancements are happening, but then the regulations are not clear. So whatever gain or acceleration in breeding enabling technologies are brought into development of the faster, climate resilient hybrids and varieties, but then those things are delayed by the lack of regulatory systems in place. Yeah, that's one big concern. The second one is affordability. Yeah? So when a company invests a lot of money, innovations comes with a price. And smallholder farmers, for them, the margins and the cost of agri-inputs are the major deciding factors, actually. So that's one big challenge, actually, when a company is investing huge money in small segments or important trade in the small segments where the margins are very low, so the prices will be much higher. Yeah? So that's the one limiting factor, actually, the companies have to consider. So with that, company have to come up with some innovative pricing policies. A lot of government interventions will be needed. Yeah? And then how the distribution will happen. The seed distribution system have to be polished in this case. And then thirdly, the farmers' awareness on what kind of these kind of advanced technologies are bringing, how safe they are, how much revenues they are going to make, the input and output traits, right? And then involvement of the farmers, like on-farm demonstrations. They have to see by themselves, right? These crops with value-added traits are working on their marketplaces, actually. It's not just imported or spin-off strategy. It has to be bred in the local environment where the biotic stresses, abiotic stresses are properly incorporated in those value-added hybrids. So their awareness is important at the same time by doing on-farm demonstration and involving our farmer engagement in during this advanced process of hybrid development is key actually for adoption of these innovative technologies. I would rate these three key areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Raja, the next question is, what role do international organizations what are the regional collaboration, do you think? You come from a private sector, but what are the regional collaboration that you think would be required from India, Africa, both research, germplasm exchange, to accelerate these activities of seed development, especially from a climate resilient perspective?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So we are in such an age where it won't walking in silos, actually it won't work. Actually, the who are in silos, actually they perish. So the regional collaboration is very, very important, and without that, we can't sustain our growth, whatever it may be. So here, what I see is that Africa has very rich in terms of genetic resources, which gives impact, the climate resilience, right? Okay. And India has, a very solid and then advanced systems in terms of the developed products and all, which are great in terms of the yield rates, right? Okay. So both can complement each other, right? Okay, for developing best products actually. So here actually, I take an example, right? Okay, then how, it's actually goes back 30 years, right? Okay, when I happened to join a startup at this moment of time, the target was at the quickest point of time to release a product in the corn. Second, I'm going to talk about corn. So visionary that breeder actually, and with a very insightful at that moment of time. So we all know actually the tropical corns actually won't work, the temperate corns won't work in the tropical regions, right? Okay, fundamentally. But he identified one best lines in the temperate regions. And actually this was actually I'm not a researcher or this thing, but actually then he explained me then how he gave me a good product, right? Okay. So then he brought a germplasm of temperate base from US and he made it beautifully adaptable to India by using an African germplasm lying in corn. So that product actually ruled Indian market for many years actually, which we were exporting to even Vietnam too. It's working well, right? Okay. So that is the beauty of that. That's what I mentioned is that it's all the collaboration and then insightful, and then also then the countries actually will be open enough to share the resources, researches, and also supply chains to actually build a very solid seed ecosystem. So that's what I feel at this moment of time. So, and of course, as I said, the shared supply chain is also very important, not only the research, because at times it's always it's from the globalization to regionalism is now picking up. Actually, it's also important that produce locally so that we are given access to produce locally. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Konate, you have worked a long time in international financial institutions. What role do international organizations and climate funds can play in supporting large-scale adaptation programs for climate-resilient crops?
Thank you. So now we have our government, for example, they haven't many resources, financial resources, to make research and to innovation. But that is the reason that we think that it's important for UN agency for fund climate change to make a big financement, to increase their financement for the sector, private sector, and for the research, innovation that permit our private sector to increase also their production and the distribution to the seed production. In this case, for example, we think that they have to prospect a new mechanism of financement in the context of climate change. That means we don't have to go to classical format to financement. And for us, the partnership in private sector is important, but they need support of UN agency, of different fund to increase our production. That I can say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think so we are running out of time, and I'll try to sum it up. It was an extremely wonderful session with so diverse experience from different parts of the globe. So it's extremely important to have a strong agriculture policy embedded for climate smart agriculture. It is always seen that policies are strong levers to create demand. It needs investment. It needs institutional leadership to take root some of these technologies. At the same time, the focus on value chain and consumer, how technologies can be made consumer friendly. And last mile infrastructure is very important. In many of the countries, we still struggle how to create awareness. So how do we create that platforms? India, we have KVKs in every district, but still it's not enough to create awareness about technologies. At the same time, the bigger challenges, some of what we have seen is community seed banks, especially in areas where private and public and FPOs, all the threes are not able to cater to, where due to some of these climate challenges, if the farmer loses a crop, he doesn't have a place to go and get the seed next time. So community seed banks are extremely important at the same time, where private and public and the other value chain actors do not deliver or cater to some of this. So I think so we don't have any questions. We don't have time to take up questions from the audience. And I think so those of you who want to interact, they will be here, so you can interact with them. Once again, thank you so much for your time. And some of you have traveled almost 14 hours to attend this important conference. Madam, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. Sir. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a wonderful panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite on stage Mr. Arish Hussain, to present the memento. Let's start with Mr. Obai Khalifa, Deputy Director, ECS Africa, Cultural Development, Gates Foundation. Everybody, can we please keep clapping? Mr. Keita Davis, CEO of Resilient AG Systems. Thank you. Mr. Raja Vadlamani, President, Seedworks International Limited. Mr. Raja, check, 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 check. Dr. G. Radhakrishnan, President, Crop Science Satguru Management Consultants. Check. Mausa Konate, Senior Advisor, EPC SAC, Burkina Faso. Thank you. Last but not the least, our moderator, Mr. Binu Cherian, Country Manager, Harvest Plus. A huge round of applause, please. Request the panel members to join for a group picture.